anthropogenic activities and environment. Dear viewers, we discuss this topic as following for better understanding. Introduction. Thoughtless human or anthropogenic activities on the environment quite often lead to adverse impact on biophysical environment, that is the biotic and abiotic surrounding of an organism or population, including the factors that have an influence on their survival, development, and evolution. Biodiversity is the degree of variation of life, referring to genetic, species, or ecosystem variation within an area, biome, or planet. Many other resources too are impacted by such activities. Anthropogenic effects, processes, objects, or materials are those that are derived from human activities. Any activity occurring in natural environments without human influences is not included as anthropogenic activity. The term anthropogenic relates to any effect or object resulting from human activity on the environment. As such, the term was first used in the technical sense by Russian geologist Alexei Pavlov and was first used in English by British ecologist Arthur Tansley in reference to human influences on plant communities. The atmospheric scientist Paul Crutzen introduced the term Anthropocene in the mid-1970s. The term is sometimes used to refer to pollution emissions that happen as a result of human activities. But generally, it applies broadly to all major human activities that lead to adverse impacts on the environment. The term is often used in the context of environmental externalities in the form of chemical or biological waste that are produced as byproducts of otherwise purposeful human activities. For instance, a scientific consensus holds that man-made carbon dioxide is the primary factor driving climate change. Sources of anthropogenic activities. 1. Industry and agriculture. Industries contribute to economic growth and development, but they cause pollution of all sorts. Hence, the degradation of environment that is caused by them cannot be overlooked. Anthropogenic activities by industries include release of gases and dust into the atmosphere. They also are responsible for unscientific waste disposal practices and air and water pollution. Poisonous gases like carbon monoxide and sulfur dioxide affects the flora and fauna equally. When polluted water is consumed by us, it causes waterborne diseases and harmful substances pass into the food products when used for irrigation. When water is used as a coolant by power plants and industrial manufacturers, thermal pollution is caused, and this causes decreased oxygen supply and adversely affects the ecosystem composition. The environmental impact of agriculture varies based on the wide variety of agricultural practices taken up around the world. Agriculture leads to conversion of woodlands into fields and pastures, including slash and burn techniques, diversion of surface and groundwater salinization due to inadequate drainage, pollution of soil and water by chemicals found in fertilizer and pesticides, and also dirty or unclean water. Agriculture not only produces significant effects on climate change by releasing greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide, but also alters the Earth's land cover, which can change its ability to absorb or reflect heat and light. Land use change such as deforestation and desertification, together with use of fossil fuels, are the major anthropogenic sources of carbon dioxide. Agriculture itself contributes to increasing methane and nitrous oxide concentrations in the atmosphere. Rising carbon dioxide levels may also have both detrimental and beneficial impacts on crop produce. Mining, transportation, construction, habitations, deforestation, and employing technology. Mining results in the removal of topsoil and creation of spoil piles, diversion of groundwater by mine shafts, surface runoff bearing mining waste, and the release of air pollution by refining processes. The environmental impact of mining includes erosion, formation of sinkholes, loss of biodiversity, and contamination of soil, groundwater, and surface water by chemicals from mining processes. In some cases, additional forest logging is done in the vicinity of mines to increase the available room for the storage of the created debris and soil. Besides creating environmental damage, the contamination resulting from leakage of chemicals also affects the health of the local population. Mining companies in some countries are required to follow environmental and rehabilitation codes, ensuring the area mined is returned to close to its original state. Some mining methods may have significant environmental and public health effects. Transportation results in diversion of surface water flow by roadways, vehicular air pollution, roadway noise, aircraft noise, and transit noise. The environmental impact of transport is significant because it is a major user of energy and burns most of the world's petroleum. This creates air pollution, including nitrous oxides and particulates, and is a significant contributor to global warming through emission of carbon dioxide, for which transport is the fastest growing emission sector. Road transport is the largest contributor to global warming. Other environmental impacts of transport systems includes traffic congestion and automobile-oriented urban sprawl, which can consume natural habitat and agricultural lands. By reducing transportation emissions globally, it is predicted that there will be significant positive effects on Earth's air quality, acid rain, smog, and climate change. The health impact of transport emissions is also of concern. A recent survey of the studies on the effect of traffic emissions on pregnancy outcomes has linked exposure to emissions to adverse effects on gestational duration and possibly also intrauterine growth. The environmental impact of shipping includes greenhouse gas emissions and oil pollution. The International Maritime Organization (IMO) has estimated that carbon dioxide emissions from shipping, which is currently estimated at 4 to 5% of the global total, would rise by up to 72% by 2020 if no action is taken. The first intersessional meeting of the IMO Working Group on Greenhouse Gas Emissions from Ships took place in Oslo, Norway, between 23rd and 27th June 2008. It was given the responsibility of developing the technical basis for the reduction mechanisms that may form part of a future IMO management to control greenhouse gas emissions from international shipping. The environmental impact of roads includes the local effects of highways, public roads, such as on noise, water pollution, habitat destruction or disturbance, and local air quality, and the wider effects including climate change from vehicle emissions. The design, construction, and management of roads, parking, and other related facilities, as well as the design and regulation of vehicles, can change the impacts to varying degrees. The environmental impact of aviation occurs because aircraft engines emit noise, particulates, and gases which contribute to climate change and global dimming. Despite emission reductions from automobiles and more fuel efficient and less polluting turbofan and turboprop engines, the rapid growth of air travel in recent years contributes to an increase in total pollution attributable to aviation. In the EU, greenhouse gas emissions from aviation increased by 87% between 1990 and 2006. Among other factors leading to this phenomenon are the increasing number of hypermobile travelers and social factors that are making air travel commonplace, such as frequent flyer programs. There is an ongoing debate about possible taxation of air travel and the inclusion of aviation in an emissions trading scheme with a view to ensuring that the total external costs of aviation are taken into account. Construction causes removal of natural habitats by grading and building and diversion of groundwater, filling in marshes, baylands, swamps, ponds, streambeds. Habitations lead to concentration of human activities in discrete zones and dumping of waste products, sewage, and debris. Deforestation is a rampant anthropogenic activity to clear land for pasture or crops. Deforestation can result from a combination of population pressure and stagnating economic, social, and technological conditions. It largely contributes to global warming and is often referred to as one of the major causes of the increased greenhouse effect. Technological applications often result in unavoidable environmental impacts. Environmental impacts caused by technological applications are unavoidable due to reasons like many technologies exploit, control, or otherwise improve nature for the noticeable benefit of humanity, while at the same time the innumerable processes in nature have been optimized and are continually altered by evolution. Any disturbance of these natural processes by technology is probable to result in negative environmental effects. The conservation of mass principle and the first law of thermodynamics relating to conservation of energy dictate that whenever material resources or energy are moved around or manipulated by technology, environmental effects are inescapable. According to the second law of thermodynamics, order can be increased within a system like the human economy only by increasing disorder or entropy outside the system, that is, the environment. In this way, technologies can create order in the human economy as clearly seen in the buildings, factories, transportation networks, communication systems, etc., by increasing disorder in the environment. According to a number of studies, increased entropy would get correlated to negative environmental impacts in all likelihood. 2. Anthropogenic activities involving water resources. Fishing and irrigation. The environmental impact of fishing can be divided into issues that involve the availability of fish to be caught, such as overfishing, sustainable fisheries and fisheries management, and issues that involve the impact of fishing on other elements of the environment, such as bycatch. These conservation issues are part of marine conservation. There can be conflict between the fishermen who depend on fishing for their livelihoods and fishery scientists who realize that if future fish populations are to be sustainable, then some fisheries must reduce or even close. In a 4-year study published in November 2006 by the journal Science, it is predicted that at present trends, the world would run out of wild-caught seafood within the next 30 years. The scientists stated that the decline was a result of overfishing, pollution, and other environmental factors that were reducing the population of fisheries at the same time as their ecosystems were being degraded. The environmental impact of irrigation includes the changes in quantity and quality of soil and water as a result of irrigation and the ensuing effects on natural and social conditions at the tail end and downstream of the irrigation scheme. An irrigation scheme often draws water from the river and distributes it over the irrigated area. As a hydrological result, it is found that the downstream river discharge reduces, the evaporation in the scheme increases, the groundwater recharge in the scheme increases, the level of the water table rises, the drainage flow increases. The effect on soil and water quality is indirect and complex, including waterlogging and soil salination. When irrigation is done by extracting groundwater by tube wells, the level of the water descends, leading to water mining, land or soil subsidence, and saltwater intrusion along the coast. Irrigation technologies like high powered water pumps, dams, and pipelines cause large scale depletion of freshwater resources such as aquifers, lakes, and rivers. More than 50% of the planet's fresh water is used in irrigation, leading to massive diversion of freshwater, lakes, and rivers, disturbing the surrounding ecosystems. Reservoirs are an integral part of irrigation. Adverse environmental and sociological impacts have also been identified during and after many reservoir constructions. Although the impact varies between different dams and reservoirs, they commonly prevent sea run fish from reaching their historical mating grounds and allow a smaller catch for fishing communities in the area. The widespread use of fossil fuel powered farm machinery for plowing has resulted in massive topsoil loss. Soils are currently lost at the rate of inches per decade, while it takes hundreds of years for 1 inch of new topsoil to form. Food processing and environmental degradation. Meat production. The environmental impact of meat production includes pollution and the use of resources such as fossil fuels, water, and land. Modern practices of raising animals for food contribute on a massive scale to air and water pollution, land degradation, climate change, and loss of biodiversity. In 2006, FAO estimated that meat industry contributes 18% of all emissions of greenhouse gases. Animals fed on grain need more water than grain crops. In tracking food animal production from the feed through to the dinner table, the inefficiencies of meat, milk, and egg production range from a 4:1 energy input to protein output ratio up to 54:1. The result is that producing animal based food is typically much less efficient than the harvesting of grains, vegetables, legumes, seeds, and fruits for direct human consumption. Incidentally, the production and consumption of meat and other animal products is associated with rainforest clearance, resource depletion, air and water pollution, and other environmental harms. Palm oil. Palm oil, locally used as cooking oil, exported for use in many commercial food and personal care products, and converted into biofuel, produces up to 10 times more oil per unit area as soybeans, rapeseed, or sunflowers. Oil palms produce 38% of vegetable oil output on 5% of the world's vegetable oil farmland. Palm oil is under increasing scrutiny in relation to its effects on the environment, including loss of carbon sequestering forest land. The displacement and disruption of human and animal populations due to palm oil cultivation is also a concern. Environmental impact of energy industry. The environmental impact of energy harvesting and consumption is diverse. A recent trend is towards the increased commercialization of different renewable energy sources. Consumption of fossil fuel resources leads to global warming and climate change. However, little change is being made in many parts of the advancing technologies can achieve a transition of energy generation, water and waste management, and food production towards better environmental and energy usage practices using methods of systems, ecology, and industrial ecology. The environmental impact of biodiesel includes greenhouse gas emissions, pollution, biodegradation, biodegradation in aquatic environments, and carbonyl emissions. Electricity generation significantly impacts the environment because electrical power is normally generated at power plants that convert some other kind of energy into electricity, and many of them pose environmental concerns. Released radioisotopes from the nuclear fuel cycle processes, including mining, processing, transporting, and storing fuel and radioactive fuel, are dangerous as radioactive particles enter organisms through various transmission routes. Surface mining of oil shale deposits causes environmental impacts similar to open pit mining. The combustion and thermal processing generate waste material to be disposed of and harmful atmospheric emissions, including carbon dioxide. The environmental impact of petroleum is often negative because it is toxic to almost all forms of life. The possibility of climate change exists. Petroleum, commonly referred to as oil, has become such an inevitable necessity to virtually all aspects of present society. Wind power consumes no fuel and emits no air pollution, unlike fossil fuels. The energy consumed to manufacture and transport the materials used to build a wind power plant is equal to the new energy produced by the plant within a few months. There are reports of bird and bat mortality at wind turbines, as there are around other artificial structures. The extent of the ecological impact may or may not be significant depending on specific circumstances. There are diverse reports about the effects of noise on people who live very close to a wind turbine. 3. Other anthropogenic activities. Nanotechnology. Nanotechnology's environmental impact can be the potential for nanotechnological innovations to help improve the environment and the probable novel type of pollution that nanotechnological materials might cause when released into the environment. There is great debate regarding to what extent industrial and commercial use of nanomaterials will affect organisms and ecosystems. Paint. Usual painting materials and processes can have harmful effects on the environment, including those from the use of lead and other additives. Environmental impact can be reduced by accurately estimating paint quantities so that wastage is minimized. Paper. With the use of modern technology such as the printing press and the highly mechanized harvesting of wood, paper has become a cheap commodity. This has led to a high level of consumption and waste. With the rise in environmental awareness due to the lobbying by environmental organizations and with increased government regulation, there is now a trend towards sustainability. Pesticides. Pesticide contaminates land and water when it escapes from production sites and storage tanks, runs off from fields when it is discarded, when it is sprayed aerially, and when it is sprayed into water to kill algae. The amount of pesticide that migrates from the intended application area is influenced by the particular chemical's properties. Its propensity for binding to soil, its vapor pressure, its water solubility, and its resistance to being broken down over time. Some pesticides contribute to global warming and the depletion of the ozone layer. Pharmaceuticals and personal care products. The environmental impact of pharmaceuticals and personal care products, PPCPs, is largely speculative. PPCPs are substances used by individuals for personal health or cosmetic reasons, and those used by farmers to boost growth or health of livestock. PPCPs have been detected in water bodies throughout the world. The effects of these chemicals on humans and the environment are not yet known, but to date, there is no scientific evidence that they have an impact on human health. War. As well as the cost to human life and society, there is a significant environmental impact of war. Scorched earth methods during or after war has been in use for much of recorded history, but with modern technology, war can cause a far greater devastation on the environment. Unexploded ordnance can render land unusable for further use or make access across it dangerous or fatal. Of all the anthropogenic disturbances on this earth, Human impact on coral reefs is significant. Coral reefs are dying around the world, particularly coral mining, pollution, that is organic and non-organic, overfishing, blast fishing, and the digging of canals and access into islands and bays are seriously disturbed in these ecosystems. Coral reefs also face high dangers from pollution, diseases, destructive fishing practices, and warming oceans. To find answers for these problems, researchers study the various factors that impact reefs. The long list of factors includes the ocean's role as a carbon dioxide sink, atmospheric changes, ultraviolet light, ocean acidification, biological virus, impacts of dust storms carrying agents to far-flung reefs, pollutants, algal blooms, and others. Reefs are threatened even much beyond coastal areas. Broad spectrum estimation shows that approximately 10% of world's coral reefs are already dead. It is estimated that about 60% of the world's reefs are at risk due to destructive human-related activities. The threat to the health of reefs is particularly strong in Southeast Asia, where 80% of reefs are endangered. Conclusion: human impact on biodiversity is significant. Humans have caused the extinction of many species, like the unique bird dodo, and apparently large and mammoth animals that inhabited the earth, like the dinosaur or the saber-tooth, during the last ice age. Though most experts have the same opinion that human beings have hastened the rate of species extinction, the exact degree of this impact is unknown. It is perhaps 100 to 1,000 times the normal background rate of extinction. Some authors have suggested that without human interference, the biodiversity of this planet would continue to grow at an exponential rate. More atmospheric nitrogen is fixed by humanity than by all natural terrestrial sources combined. More than half of all accessible surface fresh water is put to use by humanity, and about 1/4 of the bird species on Earth have been driven to extinction. By these and other standards, it is clear that we live on a human-dominated planet. Human impact on the nitrogen cycle is diverse. Agricultural and industrial nitrogen inputs to the environment currently exceed inputs from natural nitrogen fixation. As a consequence of anthropogenic inputs, the global nitrogen cycle has been significantly altered over the past century. Human alteration of Earth is substantial and growing. Between 1/3 and 1/2 of the land surface has been transformed by human action. The carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere has increased by nearly 30% since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. Global warming is a result of increasing atmospheric carbon dioxide concentrations, which is caused primarily by the combustion of fossil energy sources such as petroleum, coal, and natural gas. Such massive alteration of the global carbon cycle has only been possible because of the availability and deployment of advanced technologies ranging in application from fossil fuel exploration, extraction, distribution, refining, and combustion in power plants and automobile engines. Potential negative environmental impacts caused by increasing atmospheric carbon dioxide concentrations are rising global air temperatures, altered hydrogeological cycles resulting in more frequent and severe droughts, storms, and floods, as well as sea level rise and ecosystem disruption. Thank you.